So I guess that makes it 6:30. No more time to procrastinate here. So yeah, wait, I have to put the camera on. Hi. So I'm Ada Rose Cannon from Samsung Internet, the web browser, and I'm here to talk to you today about isomorphic rendering using HyperHTML and ES modules. So that sound cool for everyone? I encourage everyone to ask questions and chat in the chat as we go along. I will respond to questions as they happen. There's no fixed... Hello! Yeah, there's no fixed schedule. It's it'll go on as long as it needs to, but I reckon probably around an hour or so if everything goes to plan. But if we go off on a tangent, that would be awesome and probably really interesting. Should we get started? No time at the present. So, to Firefox. Actually, any questions before we begin, actually? About, like, any of the stuff I just talked about, or... Actually, I'd probably mention what isomorphic rendering is, because I just said a whole bunch of buzzwords and didn't really explain them. So, ES modules are a new thing in ES6, well, ES 2015, that allow us to load JavaScript modules in the browser. So, i.e., you pull in one script and then that imports additional scripts to use inside itself. Font size. Yes. Better? Hopefully that's okay. So yeah, then we've got isomorphic rendering, which will be making a script file which contains templates which we'll use both on the client in the browser and on the server in Node. And HyperHTML is a rendering library for doing really, really fast DOM manipulations. And I've been using it recently as my first foray into actually trying out some of these new modern web frameworks. And I'm a big fan. I think it's really good. So, yeah. So I'll explain you what I've got here. So here is a really ordinary HTTP server. So I've got a static HTML file with title and some links and stuff. It looks like this. Make that a bit bigger as well. And we have a server. The server is like the most minimal server you can do in Node, pretty much. I require Express, and I use it as a to statically serve the files in my static directory, and that's it. So we're going to go from this to something that's kind of dynamic and works really well. So I have a schedule written here for what I want to go through. Schedule. So we're going to start off by loading an ES6 module just to show how to do that. So I'm going to create a new file, static main.js. I apologize for the loud keyboard. It is a loud keyboard. Open up a terminal. So I'm coding in Glitch today because I'm coding on my Windows computer and I don't normally do that. And Glitch is just a development environment in the browser which I can just use straight away. The nice thing is that once we're done here today, you'll be able to clone the code yourself and have a go. So yeah, I'm going to add my script file. So I'll just hide this bit at the bottom. So yeah, main.js. I'm going to type equals module. So this is what lets the browser know that we're going to be importing some more stuff. So main.js is this file I just wrote. So hello world. Yeah, it's all good. I'll leave it on for now. Cool. So we want to render something. So I did pre-prepare some content. So I'm going to make a thing that displays some RSS feeds and allows you to load them dynamically. So I have, to take a shortcut, I have a service which I made a few years ago, which turns RSS feeds into JSON files. So like, for example, here's the feed for our Medium blog in RSS. And if I paste that here, it gives me a nice JSON representation. So we're going to be using this to populate the data. So we're going to have to, we're going to have to set up our rendering. So to do that, I'm going to use, good, my camera's still working. I'm going to use HyperHTML. So I'm going to add it to my package.json. So this is going to install HyperHTML 2.10.8. And now we're going to want to be able to import that into our JavaScript file. So we're going to have to make it available online, because the node modules directory isn't, it might look okay if you turn it down to 720p, but I'm not sure if Twitch does live transcoding, which is annoying, and I don't think I can drop it down. Sorry about that. But I'm going to try and edit this later, get rid of all the ums and breaks and stuff, and try and make it a video which is going to be on YouTube. Hopefully. Like, I can't promise that, but I'm going to do my best. Right, back to the thing, what was I doing? Oh yeah, so I want to make the module I just added available through through the network. So for now, I'm just going to add node modules as a path you can access. So this is a little bit of a dirty hack, and I'll probably change it later, but for now this will do. So this exposes my node modules directory where HyperHTML has just been installed, and exposes it to the client. So that should be available at node modules / HyperHTML / ESM / index.js. Holy shit, I got it in one. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear. Yes, I got it in one. That's handy. So we can now import this. So back to our JavaScript file. So import wire and bind from. So wire and bind are the two functions provided by HyperHTML for rendering something into the DOM. So you use wire to build templates, and you use bind to render that data into something. So if we do something like const my template equals, oh yeah, so I'm doing, because this will only work in browsers that support ES6 modules. Like, I can assume it has all of ES6 stuff. So any nice ES6 stuff, I'm just using without transpiling as native in the browser, because it just makes it a nice cut the mustard test. So my template equals wire h1 world. And we're gonna stream this into, not stream it, sorry, I got streaming on the mind, that's what I'm dealing with all day. We're gonna render that into the main tag. So query selector main. So we're going to do, so we just do something like, what? Oh yeah, main L. So we can just render some text into there, like hi. Document.q, query selector is not defined. So that renders that. And if I want to render my template, I can use that too. So I can, so render my template. Well, I use the same text twice. So yeah. So that's how HyperHTML works. So Y allows me to define a template, such as my template, and bind allows us to do the rendering. It uses the ES6 template literals to define this, which ends up looking really nice. It's comparable to like lit HTML, if you've used that before, which is another really cool library. I like this one in particular because it allows me to render stuff on the server, which is really nice. So let's actually try rendering some of our data in. So I'm going to let's make this make a list UL close, and this list is going to fetch the data from our RSS feed and render it as list items and use it to populate this list. So we're going to fetch this. That's a long URL. I'll put it somewhere else. Yeah, so fetch URL. So it's the JSON file's an array that needs to be a function. So then we're going to iterate over this array and render some list items. So this is where I'm going to make a template for this. So const item equal. So we're going to have, yeah, O goes to, and then wire. And then so this is going to be li, close li. So the O dot title. So this goes to array.map item. So this map turns each item in the array into a new wire. Does this code make sense? I'm using like fat arrow functions and template literals with functions on them. But it looks pretty neat. Oh, it already works. Okay, so here we go. So here's the 10 latest articles from our Medium post. If I refresh the page, you'll see it then populates it. So that's pretty neat. We probably want to make it work for any URL. So I'm going to make this into a little function. So instead, URL is just going to be the one we're looking up, and this is going to be fetch URL, and I can put this into my render function. Make this a bit neater. So, then on page load, render this. Cool, still working. So we're going to want to do this dynamically. So let's create a list of URLs and have it so that when the user clicks on them, we update. Let's paste those URLs from the other page. Probably using a different keyboard. I normally only play Overwatch on this computer and do VR on it. So yeah, let's do so this becomes urls.map. Yeah, I play that too much. It's annoys some people. So yeah, URL goes to let's do so we can do href equals close a. So put the URL in here, and we'll make this a direct link to so with the query parameter. So I'm about to do something which I know won't work. Like this is just going to break. Yeah, so this gives me an error. And this is a mistake which I make all the time. So I'm just making it on purpose just to point it out. Annoyingly, you can't have an attribute in the HTML element as just part of the attribute. So in here, it would have to be href equals plus URL. So it's just like a little catch, which has got me a few times. So if it isn't rendering, something's gone wrong, that's probably the reason why. Oh yeah, let's put a line break after each of those. What? There we go. So each one of these takes me to here with URL. So we now want to read this URL and actually respond to it changing. So if I were to do it using like a direct link, I can access that using like URL search param function. So oh, the light's so bright. What's that even look like on camera? Yeah. Right, I'm gonna quickly close the curtain. 1 sec, I'll be right back. Right, I'm back. Sorry about that. I am no longer being blinded. And I'm still pretty visible, so that's fine. Right, so we're going to get the current feed we want from the URL parameter in the URL parameter in the URL, and use it to say what we want to get. So feed equals new URL search params. I can never remember the casing for this, but I hope it's correct. Window.location.search, and then get URL. So this is just like a handy thing that's built into the browser for parsing query parameters. Oh yeah, and render that feed. So if I change it now, something to dev, this is the one for my blog, and just like another blog. So yeah, that works. But basically all we've done is built a client-side version of a server-side app, which is not super useful yet. But now we can oh yes, we should make it actually a single-page app, because that's what we're all doing nowadays. Single-page apps are the bee's knees. So let's So this is going to be super hacky because I haven't got time to do it properly. So I'm just going to listen for any click event on the window, and if it's got a href, we'll just try loading it as a yeah, if it's got a href with a URL parameter, then we'll try loading that as a feed, because but you can write something neater if you need to, because no one writes a whole single page app in an hour. So yeah, so e goes to God, I can't type. If e.target dot right, so we want to get the search parameter from this URL. Target.href.search, and then we're going to use the code we used earlier. So this, I'm just going to copy and paste this to up here. So const feed equals search get URL, and then render feed. Oh, and e.prevent default, because I don't want to load the page anyway. Right, let's see if that works. Shoot, has my feed service gone down? Ah, that's okay. That's embarrassing. The one thing I did not expect to ever break has gone down. Does that work? Wow. So this is the service that's been up and running for a very long time now and hasn't actually ever broken before. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I just relies on that. I need a backup source of data. Shoot. Right, I'm just going to copy and paste this and use it as a fake source of data. But I wanted multiple data sources. Oh well. Fake data .json. All right. So yeah, if we go to URL equals fake data.json, does that work? No, it doesn't, because it's trying to load it through the feed service, and the feed service is broken. Right, so this is going to be now fetch URL. Right. Yeah. The gods are mean sometimes. So yeah, we're just fetching our fake data. Shoot, this was going to be a cool demo. But we got it updating anyway. If I just change this first item, so copy fake data 2. I'm just going to have some other title. So the first item changes. Always happens, doesn't it? Right, so this is just going to be fake data and fake data 2. I actually have a whole bunch of in production stuff that relies on that service, so I'm going to have to, after this, I'm going to have to do some serious triaging. Right, refresh. There we go. So you notice the first item changes, because that's the one I updated. Cool, right, we're now back on target for where we want it to be. We probably want to do some kind of... No, it's not the feed URLs themselves that are broken. Their feeds are all good. I just run a feed service that turns RSS feeds into JSON files, which is super handy for like embedding them into websites and stuff. If you want to just be like, oh yeah, I want this RSS feed in my website as a component, then you can do that. So yeah, we want to render this as on the server. So I'm gonna break this out as a template file, like as a different file, so it's not all done in main. So new file, and we're gonna go template.js. So yeah, this copy and paste this import. So this one only needs wire, because we're just going to be a thing full of templates. And we're going to copy and paste our template from here. And this is going to be, so I'm turning this into a function, so it's going to be URL goes to, oh, and the other bit of my template. So yeah, these are now all my templates in a separate file, and I'm going to export my template. Then here I can, so I don't need wire anymore. Then import my template from templates.js. So yeah, this handles, and I can get rid of this function because I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to get rid of the thing that renders on load because I don't like it. So yeah, we simplified our thing not now. So we pull in our template and we've got a main that just responds to events. But we want to do something so we actually have something sensible for our server-side rendering, because this is just some dummy stuff I had earlier. So I'm going to put somewhere to tell it what to render, because we're going to want to use our templates again for the server-side rendering. So I'm just going to render here. But you might have noticed something, which is a problem we might have. If you were very paying attention at the start, our server is written in CommonJS, like as for its modules, and our client-side system is using native ES6 modules. So we're going to have to do something to get ES6 modules working in Node. Well, fortunately for us, there is a wonderful NPM module called ESM. And ESM allows me to, in one very short line, enables ES6 modules in Node in a way that's compatible and works with CommonJS as well. So you don't have to like pick one, you can go either or. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to install ESM. It's installing. Cool. And start/r ESM here in my start script to tell it to use ESM when starting the server. And I can then get this to start using imports. So instead of const express equals require express, I can do import express from express. And this is the same code. And now, in theory, it should still work. I have a server. Cool. So we want to render our index page a bit smarter. So app.use so when rendering our index, we want to render our templates in there. So if I do rest.end hello world, So that renders something. So we want to pull in our file from earlier, so our index.html. So we want to import fs from fs, and I'm just going to load the file and keep it in memory. No, ESM is production worthy, but you wouldn't really have a build step. So like ESM is something which runs your server. Like it's something that runs on your server side, not in the client. Oh, you mean like ES modules generally production worthy, not just like the ESM npm module. Kinda. The support is really good. Can I use module? JavaScript modules via script tag. Yeah, so the support is surprisingly good. I mean, 71% of users globally, which is pretty sharp. Like, it should be coming to Samsung Internet in the future, but it's not there yet. But I use them across the board, like on desktop browsers. Is pretty good. And pretty much the whole point of this podcast is showing that if you have really super hot server-side rendering, like you can have that as your fallback for other browsers, because you can have your server-side rendering being just really solid, and basically have all of your JavaScript be a progressive enhancement for the browsers that don't yet support ES6 modules. So yeah, like it's a really strong cut the mustard test. Like you're cutting out 30% of the users for JavaScript, but if your server-side rendering is done right and really good, like those 30% probably won't actually notice or care. So yeah, like it's a cool thing that you can do nowadays, and it means you can ship down untranspiled code, because if it works in ES6 modules, then you can just use a whole bunch of ES6 stuff like fat arrows and stuff, and I have no build step here or anything, which allows me to type something out straight go. Yeah, it's cool. I should probably close Slack. Yeah. So, where was I? Yeah, so pulling in our thing. So const index. I'm just gonna call it index file. Fs dot read sync, because it's only running at this when the app starts, so it's fine if it's synchronous. Load static main.js, and it's UTF-8, and then split it around render here. So the reason I'm doing this is that we end up with like the head of our file and the tail of our file, and then the bit where it says render here is where I'm gonna do templatey stuff. So for now, if I do res.end like index file 1, ooh, 0 indexed. So yeah, 0 and 1. We should now just have our page loaded as normal. Please be loaded as normal. Aha, something's breaking. Logs. What did I break? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Oh, let's read file sync. Duh. main. I'm not super smart. Main.html, not main.js. No, index.html. Oh, and res.get, not use. There we go. Cool, so that's pulling in that. Now we're going to render our templates into here. So we're going to import our, first we're going to import our templates. So import, I'll just copy and paste it from main.js. Import my templates from static templates.js. We have an error, which was an error I expected. So yeah, can't find modules, node modules, HyperHTML, ESM, index.js. This is because it's looking in node modules in its local directory. But this is kind of a cool, neat thing about this is that this is loading. So the client side, what it loads goes through the server, and we control that in this file. We decide what file it gets. So instead of this general node modules directory where I expose the whole node modules, I can jig it to something be a little smarter. So for example, this is like a bit tricksy, but I hope you get what's happening. So I'm going to change this to be in our server. So instead of being /node modules, I'm just going to do /hyper, and I'm actually going to give it this whole directory. So HyperHTML /ESM. And so if this can now require just hyper index.js, and same in our templates, hyper index.js. So it still doesn't work because our server is looking for static hyper index.js. Well, we can make that. So I'm going to make static hyper index.js. And I'm going to have this return the, so this, even though it's in, this is like a little weird. So even though it's in the static directory, this file is only loaded by the server side. The client side version, it goes for hyper, which then serves at HyperHTML from the node modules directory. Now, the server-side portion of HyperHTML is a different package on npm, and it's called ViperHTML, like the snake. So I'm going to add that now, ViperHTML. Here we go. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to expose the bits we need, wire and bind, from Viper through this hyperindex.html. So import wire and bind from ViperHTML, and then it's going to export wire and bind, and that is kind of all the jiggery pokery we need to make it work. Like, this is now running without errors. I mean, we're still not doing anything with my template, but we've got it in. And I'm also going to import HyperHTML from HyperHTML here. From HyperHTML. And now we can start doing some server-side rendering. So right now I'm just doing this hacky res.end. But we're going to look into actually how HyperHTML gives us the rendering for this. So it has a function called async, and async renders templates asynchronously and exports them in chunks, pretty much exactly what you need for sending something down to the client over a network. So I'm going to do const async render equals HyperHTML dot async. What's my error? Something's gone weird and wrong. What do you mean unexpected token import? Don't you go weird on me now. There we go. Don't know what's happening there, but it's working. So yeah, import HyperHTML from HyperHTML, async render HyperHTML.async. So this is a little weird, but I'll try to explain it as I go. So I'll just delete this bit. Actually, I'll just comment it out for now. So it has, you've got to provide it with a callback function. So async render, where we're just going to do for each chunk it gets. So chunk goes to res.write chunk. So what this does, it's like the bind function which we had in here. So render to main is bind, but instead of bind, it's render asynchronously to the network. So instead of putting it into a DOM element, it shoves it down the response from Express. And then we use it the same way. So we start our template, and we're going to go, so yeah, I'm just going to copy and paste this in here. And then when this is done, just do res.end. So if I refresh it, oh, I didn't set the character encoding. I'm just going to copy and paste that in from a snippet I had prepared earlier. So set the content type to text HTML. Ah, it's done something weird and funny. So HyperHTML here is trying to be really friendly, and it's automatically character encoding the data we've given it from the index file. But you can tell it to force it to be HTML by going HTML, by returning an object with the HTML property set to the HTML code you want to render. So now if I go HTML and then refresh it, I should get, once again, the thing we had before. Cool. We're still working. But now I can put in my template here. So let's go template. Sorry, my template. Oh shoot, because fetch needs to be an actual URL. So let's just copy and paste the full URL from here. So fake data.json. So this will load in. Yeah, this should now be server-side rendered. Oh, I have errors. That's not a useful error. Stop doing this to me. Let's refresh the page. Let's just rejig this. Make sure it's nothing weird is happening. Yes, thank you. That is definitely something that it should do. Thank you, that was it. Oh, you're so handy. I would never have... Fetch is not defined. Cool, so yeah, Node doesn't have fetch built in. Not a problem. Someone's written an isomorphic fetch function called node fetch. So I'm going to add that. And then I'm going to do import fetch from node fetch global dot fetch equals fetch. Oh, it's probably still installing it. It worked! Server-side rendering. So yeah, that was rendered server-side, and then if we click on these... Why is type error evolving? Okay, something's gone weird. It's trying to... Oh shoot, I got to have my node mod, my hyper above, because it's trying to pull something from its local directory, which actually matches here. Hyper index.html is a thing. So I've got to override it by having this line, having the line which loads hyper above the line that loads our general static folder. So yeah, no more errors in the console. In should be an object got undefined. Don't diff update. Yes. So the problem is I changed the signature of my template. So previously it was just a wire, but now it's a function that returns a wire. So I've got to put the URL into there. So render to main, my template, and then this is going to be feed. Oh, I'm glad I managed to realize that in time. That would have been really awkward if the feed just devolved into me being like, why isn't this working? Cool. That's pretty nice. So we have server-side loading on the first load. And we have and from then on it's a single page app. So we're getting there. This is like the core functionalities in. But one thing you might notice, if I click on fakedata2.json and refresh it, it renders the data from fakedata.json, even though we've requested fakedata2.json in the URL. So we're going to have our server account for that. So I've just hard-coded in fakedata.json, but we're just going to do plus rec.query.url. So whatever the URL parameter is in the query parameters, it will try loading that instead. Oh, that's going to be that's going to be very, very flaky. It'll work for this very quick use case. So yeah, now fakedata2.json loads correctly when I refresh the page. If I change it to this one, if I change it to fakedata.json, then fakedata.json loads. So yeah, that's handy. So the next thing we want to do is have it something with a history. We want to do it so that when we click these links, we update the URL bar accordingly, so we don't break URLs so people can copy and paste the URL bar. So to do that, we're going to use the history API to push state when it changes and respond to the state changing. So in our main.js, we're going to update the URL. So history.pushState. So I remember rightly, it's the state. So, and then it's what the title of the page should be. Some title. If you're doing this yourself, you should do it properly. And what the URL should be. So it should be what I want it to be, URL equals, and the thing we just got. So now we're updating the history each time we click on a link. So if we go back to our page, refresh it. So yeah, our URL is updating as we click on these, but back doesn't do anything. So we need to respond to that changing. So we're going to add a listener for the pop state function. So window.add event listener pop state. And then we're going to so if history.state copy and paste this. So this will be history.state.feed. So fake data 2, fake data 2, back, forward. Yeah, that's done. And if I refresh the page, because the URL has stayed, like our server-side rendering, it does this load. So this works really well. So we have server-side loading for the first URL. We have server-side rendering for the first load. Then from then on, it's a single page app, but all the URLs still make sense. So at any point, we can refresh the page and it will still work because the server is using our templates, which are only defined once because they're isomorphic, to render it. So yeah, now we have a single page app with server-side rendering using ECMAScript modules and HyperHTML. Does anyone have any questions or want me to go into something in more detail? I'll paste the URL for this in the in the chat, so you can go through it yourself and explore the code. Like, all of this is a little bit flaky. Like, I'm not doing any tests for anything here, and it would allow you to basically load any JSON file and render it to the page on the server side. So you probably want to do some sanitation there. But it's the fundamentals are here for you to be able to copy this code and use it for your own production sites. But thank you so much for listening. Remember to like and subscribe. No, I'm kidding. I'm not on YouTube. Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, I'm gonna hang around for a few minutes if anyone wants to take any questions. If anyone wants to give me any questions. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. So yeah, I think this has been a success. Definitely gonna do it again. Alright, cool, yeah, I'm gonna go... Alright, well in that case, I'm gonna go play some Overwatch. Thank you so much everyone. Have a great evening, and I'll see you all next time if you tune in. Cool. Bye! Wait, by the way, what do you think of my t-shirt? It was like the most topical t-shirt I could find.